Jake took a long sip of his coffee, gazing out the foggy window of the corner diner. The Saturday morning crowd cluttered the small restaurant, filling it with the warm smells of bacon and coffee. But Jake was oblivious to it all, lost in his thoughts about the photos stored on his phone. "More coffee, hun?" the waitress asked, interrupting his contemplation. "Oh, no thanks," Jake replied distantly, turning his attention back out the window. Across the street, he could see the top part of the yellow two-story house that belonged to his neighbor and longtime best friend, Luke. The very friend he was hiding a devastating secret from. Jake and Luke had grown up together, both now in their early 30s and living side by side just as they always dreamed about as kids. They were closer than brothers. At least they were until yesterday morning, when Jake's whole perspective shifted. As he aimlessly wandered the shops downtown, Jake spotted Luke's wife Anna through the front window of a popular local restaurant. She was seated closely across from a well-dressed man Jake didn't recognize. Too closely for just friends, Jake observed. When Anna laughed and reached out to touch the man's arm, Jake's doubts were confirmed. Something secretive was definitely unfolding. Without thinking, Jake pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of the pair's cozy interaction. It wasn't until later that the gravity of what he witnessed truly set in. Should he confront Anna? Tell Luke? Jake agonized over what to do. After a mostly sleepless night, Jake decided he needed to show Anna the photo and gauge her reaction. If she came clean about cheating on Luke, then maybe they could figure out the best way to break the news to him. Jake gulped down the last of his bitter coffee and left a few dollars on the table. Time to get this over with. A light rain had begun falling as Jake made his way across the street to Luke and Anna's house. He knew Luke was away on a fishing trip for the weekend, which would give him and Anna privacy to talk. Jake knocked and only had to wait a few seconds before Anna opened the door, dressed in leggings and an oversized knit sweater. "Jake, this is a surprise," she said with a friendly smile. She ushered him into the warm living room. "Hey, Anna, do you have a minute to chat?" Jake asked, taking a seat on the sofa. His heart was pounding in his chest. Anna sat across from him on the adjacent armchair. "Sure, of course. What's going on?" Jake pulled his phone out of his pocket and took a deep breath. "Yesterday, I saw you having lunch with someone across town. A guy I didn't recognize." Anna's smile faded and she shifted in her seat. "Okay, what about it?" Jake turned his phone screen toward Anna, the photo of her and mystery man displayed. "Who is he, Anna?" Her eyes widened in alarm. "Jake, were you spying on me? Why would you take a photo without my permission?" Jake shook his head. "That doesn't matter. Who is this guy? Are you having an affair?" Anna's shock morphed into anger. "How dare you accuse me of something like that?" She stood up and began pacing. "You have no right to stalk me and make these kind of allegations against your best friend's wife." Jake stayed seated, watching Anna unravel with a mixture of frustration and sadness. "It's a fair question, given the photo. Just tell me who he is, Anna. Does Luke know about him?" Anna whirled around, her face red. "No, Luke doesn't know, and this is none of your business. I am not having an affair. But even if I was, it wouldn't be your place to get involved." She stomped over and snatched Jake's phone from his hand. After deleting the photo, she gathered herself enough to speak calmly. "I'm asking you as your friend, Jake. Leave this alone. Don't mention it to Luke. Can you do that?" Jake stood up, and they locked eyes for a tense moment. He didn't know what to believe. With no photo evidence left, it would be impossible to convince Luke something was going on. Maybe Anna was telling the truth. But his gut still nagged at him. "Fine," Jake finally replied. "I'll stay out of it." "Thank you." Anna's body relaxed in relief. She walked Jake to the door and gave him a quick hug. "Let's keep this between us, okay?" "Yeah, sure," Jake forced himself to say. He stepped out into the chilly rain and headed across the lawn to his house next door. Glancing back, he saw Anna's face peering at him from behind the living room curtains. Over the next week, Jake agonized over whether to bring up what he saw to Luke. Every time they had one of their usual weekend's hangs, playing video games or watching the game, it ate away at Jake. He knew if the tables were turned, he would want Luke to tell him if something seemed off. By the following Saturday, Jake resolved he had to say something to his friend. The guilt was too much. Jake took a deep breath and knocked on Luke's front door, surprised when it swung open abruptly. "Oh, hey, come on in," Luke welcomed, seeming stressed. "I was just walking out to grab some stuff from the store. Anna's been acting weird and distant lately, so I thought I'd pick up some flowers and her favorite ice cream to cheer her up. Want to come?" Jake stepped inside, his chest tightening. This was his chance. "Actually, Luke, can we talk for a minute before you go?" "Sure, but make it quick. I gotta get going." Luke walked toward the kitchen and Jake followed. His mouth went dry, the words struggling to form. It's about Anna, and why she might be acting distant. Luke turned around sharply, his eyes intense. What do you know? When you were away on your fishing trip, I stopped by to see Anna. I had seen her the day before having lunch with some guy I didn't know, so I asked her about it. Jake hesitated before pushing forward. They seemed close, Luke. Too close. What exactly are you implying? Luke asked through gritted teeth. She swore nothing was going on and made me promise not to tell you. But as your friend, I couldn't keep that from you. Luke's face flashed red, his hands balling into fists. You honestly expect me to believe Anna is cheating on me based on nothing but your judgmental suspicion? His voice elevated with each word. Jake tried to diffuse Luke's erupting anger. I only brought it up because something seemed off. I didn't feel right keeping that from you. Unbelievable. Luke huffed. You've always been jealous that I have an amazing wife like Anna. Now you want to sabotage us? Some friend you are. That's crazy, Luke. I'm trying to look out for you. But Luke was seeing red. He strode forward until he was inches from Jake's face and jabbed at his chest with his finger. Stay the hell away from me and my wife, you backstabbing liar. Jake stepped back, stunned and despondent. He had just been trying to protect his best friend. Without another word, Luke grabbed his truck keys off the counter and stormed out, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle picture frames on the walls. Jake sank down on one of the kitchen stools, his head spinning. Not only did Luke not believe him, but their lifelong friendship was perhaps damaged beyond repair. All because Jake tried to do the right thing. He dropped his face into his hands. What the hell was he supposed to do now? Over the next few weeks, Jake only caught glimpses of Luke outside doing yard work or getting the mail. His former friend made a point to avoid eye contact. On the rare occasion they did lock eyes, Luke's were filled with resentment. The distance between the once inseparable friends created an ache in Jake's chest. He replayed the confrontation with Luke over and over, wondering if he should have kept his mouth shut like Anna asked. But no, he reminded himself. Speaking up was the right thing, wasn't it? The second-guessing only aggravated his constant unease over the situation. From the outside, not much had outwardly changed between Luke and Anna from what Jake observed. But he noticed small differences he doubted anyone else would pick up on, because no one else knew them the way Jake did. Like how the usual Sunday family dinners on Luke and Anna's back patio came to an abrupt halt, and the bubbling sound of Anna's laugh, once a frequent neighborhood soundtrack from her open windows on spring days, went silent. Then there was the way Luke seemed to throw himself into household projects he had long put off, like repainting the shutters and restaining the back deck. Almost like he was trying to avoid something, or someone. Jake didn't want to make assumptions or jump to conclusions, but his gut told him the apparent issues between Luke and Anna had bubbled up not long after Jake shared what he witnessed the day at the restaurant. Coincidence or consequence, he wasn't sure. On a sunny Saturday in late May, as Jake sat on his back porch scanning news headlines on his phone, the sound of slamming car doors grabbed his attention. I don't give a damn about your book club meeting, Anna, Luke yelled, storming up the driveway toward his house. You expect me to believe you're going to be out until midnight with those women? Anna marched after him in her heels, waving her arms angrily. I told you it's not just book club. We're also having dinner. They disappeared into the house mid-argument, their shouts muffled but still audible through Jake's open windows for another few minutes. An uncomfortable silence eventually replaced the yelling. Jake sat frozen, perturbed by the volatile exchange. A short time later, Anna emerged from the house alone, revving up her Mercedes and peeling out of the driveway. Luke appeared in the front doorway, his face red and jaw clenched tightly as he watched her speed off. He turned and went back in the house, slamming the front door loud enough to make Jake jump in his seat. Whatever amount of hope Jake held onto that his suspicions about Anna had been unfounded was waning by the day. Over the next 2 weeks, more obvious clues presented themselves. Like Anna's sports car frequently pulling in during early morning hours, when she typically left for work. Or how Luke now spent more evenings than not drinking beers solo on his back patio instead of going inside after dinner. Jake ached watching his formerly happy-go-lucky friend seem so forlorn and detached. The urge to reach out pulsed within Jake daily, no matter how often he reminded himself Luke wanted nothing to do with him. Until one steamy Saturday night in late June changed everything. Jake awoke to repeated pounding on his front door. Still dazed from slumber, he shuffled down the stairs as additional urgent knocks beckoned him. Swinging open the door, Jake was met by a disheveled virgin Luke, reeking of stale beer. Behind his bloodshot eyes swirled a convergence of emotions, anguish, regret, rage. You were right about Anna, Luke sputtered out. Jake guided Luke inside to sit while he quickly brewed a pot of strong coffee. Then Luke recounted what transpired in broken fragments between gulps. After days of arguing, Luke demanded to see Anna's phone while she slept to understand why she had become so cold and distant. What he found rocked him to his core: explicit texts and photos exchanged with a man Luke recognized. The same well-dressed guy Jake had seen Anna with months before. Luke vacillated between torturous heartache that his wife of nearly a decade could betray him so callously and blind fury he could rip the guy's head off with his bare hands should he ever cross paths with him. Jake sat speechless for several minutes, the weight of Luke's anguish heavy upon him. "Luke, I don't know what to say," Jake finally offered feebly. "I wanted to be wrong about what I saw that day. I really did." Luke placed down his mug. His eyes reflected a sense of clarity for the first time. "This isn't your fault, Jake. It's hers. And that waste of space she's seeing." Luke stood up decisively. "But they're not going to get away with this." Jake rose slowly, puzzled by Luke's sudden shift in tone. Luke gripped Jake's shoulder firmly, any shred of previous resentment replaced by cohesive camaraderie. "I know I screwed up by not believing you before, but I'm hoping you'll help me get justice here." Looking into Luke's tired but determined eyes, Jake felt the fracture between them healing. He gave Luke's shoulder a reciprocal squeeze. "Whatever you need. I'm here for you, man." Over the next few days, Luke played mental chess trying to figure out the most satisfying way to confront Anna and her dirtbag boyfriend. Every option he envisioned ended the same way, with Anna trapped and caught red-handed, getting a full taste of bitter betrayal she had served him. By midweek, Luke hatched the skeleton of plan, one with humiliation at its core. They knew Anna was careful not to mention her boyfriend by name or have any trace of him discoverable on her phone. But Luke was able to piece together enough clues to discern she routinely reserved a room at fancy hotel downtown to rendezvous with her lover. Armed with the hotel name and a range of dates, Jake and Luke plotted out an evening stakeout to gather the remaining evidence needed to catch the cheaters in the act. Then somehow use that to ultimately expose them and serve Anna separation papers. She didn't deserve to walk away cleanly from demolishing their marriage and Luke's trust, Luke kept repeating. By Saturday night, they were ready to execute their stealth operation. The reservation was under Anna's name as expected for a deluxe suite that evening. Luke had packed an overnight bag, acting normal so Anna suspected nothing, and then motioned to Jake he was leaving for the night. Jake picked Luke up a few blocks away, and they drove to the elegant four-star hotel on the edge of downtown. Inside the marble-clad lobby, guests mingled in evening attire heading to the rooftop lounge. Jake felt underdressed in his jeans and black baseball cap pulled down. They casually made their way to the front desk area, waiting for their Jex-haired clerk to be distracted so Jake could slide behind the computer screen. He pulled up the hotel's room database and quickly located the suite Anna had on hold. Bingo, room 1215, 2 floors above them. Now to secure the room adjacent to it. When the clerk stepped away for a minute, Jake seized the opportunity to book room 1213, inputting a fake name and prepaid debit card number. Luke watched guard over his shoulder until Jake gave him a discreet thumbs up. Minutes later, they were boarding an elevator up, key cards in hand yet with no real idea what awaited them inside room 1213. Adrenaline and nerves pounded through them. There was no turning back now. The elevator dinged signaling they had arrived on the 12th floor. Jake pulled the brim of his hat lower as they hurried silently down the quiet hallway. Between rooms 1213 and 1215 was a door marked staff only, a utility closet of some kind. "That's perfect," Jake whispered. "We can listen at that door without being seen if anyone comes by. Hopefully it connects the rooms." Luke nodded, his jaw rigid as they entered their room. It was spacious for only needing to serve as temporary surveillance quarters. Jake did a quick scan, determining the shared wall backing up to room 1215 was their best hideout. A fancy canvas print hung in their way. Luke, wordless, helped Jake remove it and gently rested atop the plush king bed. They grabbed 2 plastic cups from the bathroom and positioned themselves against the wall to listen. For what felt like hours, all they picked up was muffled hallway noise. As 10 p.m. approached with still no sounds of Anna next door, impatience and doubt crept up. "You really think they'll show up?" Jake asked. Luke checked his watch, today's irritation with Anna resurfacing. "They better. She told me her book club dinner wasn't over until dash." Luke halted mid-sentence as the distinct sound of a keycard unlocking a door stopped him. They scarcely breathed, hands cupped tightly to the wall as though any movement might give away their presence. The adjoining door opened. Murmurs soon turned to discernible voices, a man and woman laughing lightly. Then wet kissing noises. Luke's face flushed red and jaw clenched so firmly Jake thought he might crack a molar. It was agonizing enduring every sound, not even wanting to imagine actions behind them. But the worst part was still ahead. Jake spotted it first, the small hole at the top corner of the wall trim next to the door frame. Someone had hastily patched drywall there long ago, leaving enough space between uneven pieces to see through like a peephole. Jake motioned Luke over with 2 fingers. As much as it pained him, Luke had to see the harsh truth with his own eyes. Taking turns peering through the tiny opening was like watching a horror movie they desperately wanted to turn off, yet couldn't rip their eyes away. With each glimpse of clothes scattering and compromised positions, reality pieced together more tangibly for Luke. When they finally heard the shattering moan of a woman climaxing, Luke lost it. His torment morphed to unhinged fury. Before Jake could react, Luke was bursting into the hallway clutching one of the plastic hotel cups they had been eavesdropping with. In a blind emotional flash, Luke smashed the cup sideways against the electronic key reader. Sparks flew as Anna's muffled voice yelled out, "What was that?" Luke immediately realized his lapse in self-control could have just forfeited their advantage. He raced back inside room 1213, nearly hyperventilating. Jake closed the door gently behind them. They stayed frozen like statues until hearing Anna's door reopen and shut once more, followed by the swift click-clack of her heels hurriedly moving down the hall. Luke ran his hands roughly through his tousled hair. "We've come too far to let them slip away now. Are you still with me, Jake?" Jake knew the night was only going to get more insane, but he also understood why Luke needed to do this, for his own sanity. "Let's go get the bastards." Adrenaline pumping, they hastily constructed the remainder of their retaliation scheme as if choreographing a dramatic sting operation. Luke ransacked the room gathering all usable supplies, sheets, hangers, ice bucket, tablets, glasses, throwing items into Jake's arms that he caught like a scrambling assistant. Their preparation had a manic edge. Luke flipped the room's sofa onto its back and smoothed out the white bedsheet atop it. As Jake secured corners of the billowing sheet to nearby tables and chairs developing an ersatz photography set, Luke logged into the fancy desktop computer. Opening a blank document, Luke typed out a concise, signatures-ready separation statement highlighting Anna's callous betrayal. His jaw flexed as he mechanically tapped away at words that legally dissolved a marriage Jake knew his friend cherished profoundly. Printing 2 copies, Luke folded them neatly and tucked one inside his shirt pocket for later. At nearly 1 a.m., fatigue tugged at Jake's eyelids despite surging adrenaline. Long gone were any fantasies of confronting their two-faced lovers after a calm heart-to-heart. That ship had sailed the moment Luke witnessed his wife mid-coital moan. Now Jake simply prayed they could somehow avoid jail by night's end. "I'll be right back. 30 minutes tops." "Get the rest set up," Luke said, grabbing his truck keys off the nightstand. Before Jake could inquire, Luke disappeared out the door. As Jake positioned a desk lamp over the white backdrop and balanced a smartphone on books atop it angled downward, an idea struck him. Humiliation needed a deeper cut if Luke was ever going to get closure from this mess. Jake had noticed bags of powdered sugar and food coloring in the kitchenette when they arrived. He suddenly realized exactly how they could drive salt a little deeper into Anna and her sly ball lover's wounds tonight. Working rapidly, Jake combined ingredients into a blender. Red dye and powdered sugar transformed into makeshift cake frosting. Slopping generous gobs atop 2 room service plates, Jake smoothed out crude lettering with the back of a spoon. Standing back to inspect his spontaneous revenge desserts, Jake couldn't restrain an impish grin. The bright scarlet script conveyed the core message they hoped to sear into Anna and Don Juan's minds tonight: "You're busted." At nearly 2:30 a.m., Jake's adrenaline rush dipped closer toward overexhausted delirium. Their targets had been silent next door for over an hour since Luke sabotaged the electronic lock. Leaving shortly after to retrieve mystery supplies left Jake anxious their intended ambush was now torpedoed. As Jake contemplated jumping ship on this deranged plot before an inevitable knock came from hotel security or police, the electronic lock chirped next door. Muffled giggling echoed into room 1213. Showtime. Jake scrambled into position, hunkering down behind the back of the flimsy photo studio sofa. Makeshift plaster dust sprinkled around the floor and rigged phone camera started recording atop the books. Familiar kissing sounds quickly elevated against the shared wall. The thought of witnessing round 2 of Anna's rendezvous through the peephole sent Jake's stomach churning sourly. He focused on steadying his shaky hands and racing heart. They needed to catch their culprits off guard once the love fest sounded nearly complete. After enduring agonizing moans and rhythmic thumping for an eternity, Jake finally heard shuffling he guessed to be clothes being collected. Jake tapped twice softly on the wall, Luke signaled from the hallway that he was back in position, lubricating Jake's entrance for the coming confrontation. Mere minutes to showtime. Jake silently prayed this circus wouldn't land them both behind bars by sunrise. On cue, as the suite door clicked open, Jake sprang over the couch, shielding him just as Anna's shrill voice pierced the air. "Luke, what the hell?" Anna stood mouth agape, staring up at Luke blocking the doorway, with scattered rose petals at her feet. Behind her, the mostly dressed man scrambled to find his pants. Luke stepped forward, backing Anna into the room, face etched in bitter rage. His hand emerged from his coat pocket, brandishing legal documents like a deputy serving a warrant. "Let me properly introduce you to my dear friend Jake," Luke growled. Jake leapt over the couch, posing triumphantly with two maroon scripted, "You're busted" dessert plates. Anna's monster lover lunged toward Luke, but was abruptly halted, seeing Jake's phone rigged up as a recording device aimed squarely at him. Jake scolded, swiping discarded clothes off a chair for Anna with sarcastic hospitality. "Have a seat, you two, while we get this legal stuff in order." Over the next painful minutes, Luke stoically relayed to a shell-shocked, teary-eyed Anna how their sham marriage was over for good. Jake could hardly bear witnessing the depth of Luke's raging heartache behind his steely veneer. When Anna tried explaining away her sins, Luke held up a hand and turned to her scumbag partner, still only half-dressed, with repugnance. "And as for you, buddy," in one quick stride Luke cocked back a fist, channeling all fury from Anna's betrayal. The force of marble-like knuckles crunching bone and cartilage echoed as Anna's lover crashed backward over the media console. "Luke, stop, it's not worth it," Jake yelled out futilely. By now, surely hotel security was already on their way. Luke stood huffing over the groaning, whimpering man like a prizefighter over a battered opponent. After a silent beat, Luke calmly stepped over to the desk, signed the separation agreement with flair, and slid the other copy over to Anna. "Give this loser my best if you shack up together." Luke stepped over whimpering Romeo, nudging his side with disgust. He stopped in the doorway next to Jake, both enhanced adrenaline and sorrow draining from his body rapidly. "Let's get out of here." The pair walked briskly but silently down metal emergency stairwell steps. Bursting into the cool night air never felt so liberating. Neither spoke until sliding into Jake's car, the weight of the evening's events settling heavily upon them. After Jake pulled slowly out of the parking garage, Luke leaned back and closed his burning eyes. "I need a drink. A lot of them." Jake watched his friend intently at the stoplight, feeling overwhelming concern and sadness for him. "I'm buying all night. And I think we'll have lots more to talk about tomorrow once the dust settles." Luke opened his eyes and offered the faintest of smiles to Jake. The first semblance of peace Luke had felt in ages. After the late-night confrontation and public exposure of the affair, Luke files for and finalizes a divorce from Anna. He is heartbroken but realizes he deserves more integrity than Anna displayed in their marriage. Though Luke is scrambling to put his life together solo, his friendship with Jake is ultimately strengthened and they become closer than ever before. Seeing Jake's loyalty through such a painful betrayal restores Luke's faith that true friends who have your best interests at heart do exist. And Jake's support gives Luke the courage to start dating again and open his heart in a relationship built on mutual trust and honesty. As for Anna, she initially feels that everyone is against her over the humiliating hotel fiasco. In time, the reality of losing her marriage and reputation in the neighborhood through her selfish decisions leaves Anna remorseful and humbled. She focuses on self-reflection, becoming independent and willing to admit her mistakes with the goal of redemption. So while acts of deception crushed important bonds for all initially, the resulting chaos ultimately rewrote their destinies for the better and taught invaluable lessons. With time, forgiveness allows both friendships and marriages to heal. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.